Hello and welcome to Healing from Within. I am your host, Sheryl Glick, author of The Living Spirit, Answers for Healing and Infinite Love, which shares stories of spiritual awakening, spiritual communication, healing energies, and miracles, along with ways to discover your intuition and to use it for creating a healthy, prosperous, joyful life experience. Today I welcome Alicemarie O'Neill, author of The Formula 7 Depression, which offers 7 steps for healing from depression and manic depression, as well as bipolar disorder. Hello, Alicemarie, and thank you for joining us today to focus on ways to help those many people all over the world. And I'm sure there are very few families who escape having a member dealing with a form of depression. So
That's
thank
right.
you.
That's right. Thank you for having me. I appreciate this.
Okay. Alicemarie, as listeners of Healing from Within are so well aware, my guests and I share intimate stories of sometimes metaphysical events or awarenesses from their own experiences of the fact we are more than our physical bodies and our infinite soul beings gathering experiences. Quite simply to remember the magnificent potential we have to create healthy, extraordinary lives with our thoughts, actions, and a higher consciousness of universal energy. So, in today's episode of Healing from Within, we will realize that most humans are challenged in one way or another, either an emotional, physical, or spiritual concern, and it is not that they are completely creating that scenario, but may have brought it along with them into this life. In becoming aware, we begin to look for answers and solutions so we can move past fear and any dysfunction to positivity, happiness, and help to refine our soul essence. Because that's the true nature of why we're here in this life. To refine our soul, to remember who we are, and to do the best we can to create new ways to float through this physical environment in the best way possible. But it doesn't come easy. A lot of work.
No, it doesn't. No.
a lot of work and time and effort goes into it, and there are always people around us. I believe they're sent by spirit. They're sort of guides or teachers, both here in the physical realm and beyond, who help us deal with whatever our challenge is, because our challenge is necessary for us to learn something about ourselves, and also for those in spirit to learn also, as we're all interconnected, so we're all learning from each other. But I always love to ask my guests to think back to their childhood and to remember a person, place, or event that may have been meaningful to them. And maybe it showed them, maybe it showed others the values or work or lifestyle they might embrace as an adult. Because I feel we're born with a story, a plan, a destiny, and a purpose. And we find that along the way if we truly try to awaken and allow ourselves to see all the possibilities. So think back.
Well, I tend to look at things in cycles. And if most people would look at their childhoods, there are pivotal ages. The age of 7, the age of 12. When I was 12, my brother died.
Oh.
And he had been born, if I could just tell this for a second here, this is a powerful story. He had been born with a hole in his heart in 1955. He was one of the first 25 people in the world to undergo open heart surgery. And he was about 3 months old at the time. I was 2 years old. My mother was a very religious person, very spiritual person. She promised St. Anthony she would dress him in brown if he would just live. She'd dress him in brown for 10 years, which she did. He lived. She dressed him in brown. He came to hate that color.
Yeah,
but
sure.
6 months before his 10th birthday, he contracted leukemia. And the day before his 10th birthday, he passed away. She got her miracle. But the thing that I learned from that, and I came up in a house of miracles, is that you don't put conditions. When you are asking for guidance and assistance, just be open to it. Just be open. It's there for all of us all the time. Does that make sense?
To me, it makes perfect sense. I know we are born with a time to come and a plan, something we wish or our soul hopes to achieve, people to be with who learn from us and we learn from them. And there's nothing to do. We can't avoid the time that it is when we have to go. Some people think if you live a long life, it's so desirable. But any life that where a person or a soul has the opportunity to explore something, it could be something minor. Maybe for your brother it was to be able to tolerate wearing that one color all his life, and he achieved it. He overcame maybe his fear or anger at it. But it makes perfect sense. We should never wish for something that will harm ourselves in regard to helping another person, because the universe hears what we say. They know our fears and they know our desires, and they don't figure it out. They don't pick and choose. They don't decide for us. They just do it. They just create what we've asked for. So our thoughts and our reality are very positive, are very important to learn to pay attention to and monitor. And I could tell you a little story. When my mother was at the end of her life, I was with her. She was in a coma, and her breathing was very labored, and I knew she was hanging on for me. She didn't want to leave me. And I said to her, "Mom, go be with God and I'll see you soon." And then I corrected myself because I realized just what we're talking about, that the universe just takes it as it comes. They don't decide what's good or bad. So I said, "Oh, wait a minute, Mom. I have to change that. I have to correct that. I will see you later." So my mother had a wonderful sense of humor. And I didn't mean to be funny, but I guess it was a bit of humor in a very trying time. But what you just said made wonderful sense to me, and you're one of the only people in 10 years of doing these shows who has said something like that. Now, my granddaughter had a little hole in her heart that was discovered at 3 months too. Well, I'm a Reiki healer and practitioner, and I just kept sending Reiki, and I just kept hoping for the best result, knowing that what was best for her soul was going to happen, and I was only, hoping for the best. It did close. It did close. So she.
That's wonderful. Now, there's a miracle.
That was.
And we have to honor them as miracles.
Of course, it was a miracle. At that point, I wasn't. That's about 10 years ago. It's almost 11 years ago. But yes, many miracles are happening all the time to all of us. They may seem small, but it's not a matter of judgment, small or large. It's just a gift, and we need to be so grateful for our life and the people in it for as long as they're here. And I know when they're not here, they're still here.
They're still here. Sure they are.
As a medium, I feel the energy shift whenever I say someone's name and close my eyes, and I know they're very much here. So for our people out there, nothing's ever lost. Nothing's lost. It is only gained, we gain a new perspective or opportunity to appreciate ourselves and others through it all. Now let's go on to what we're talking about here. You mentioned suicides in the book, so
Yes.
I know they're arising at a very alarming rate in the U.S. You mentioned Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade and Robin Williams and Kurt Cobain and Alexander McQueen, but my daughter just had three of them in her little town. Three fathers and men in the middle age. So we must look at the conditions that made life so unbearable and discover ways to help people who suffer from depression and a disconnect from themselves and others to find some relief, to find some understanding, to find really acceptance and allowing themselves to flow with all the events and surrender to their destiny, their plan, their eternal sense of being. Because once they get that eternal sense, right now there's a great divide among us from our spiritual connection, as well as all the other factors, government, economics, politics, and all the other earthly problems we're dealing with. So we've got to get beyond that. So let's go on. Tell us something about how you have interacted with all these problems and what you think we should be starting to do now.
In my experience, we are undergoing a real large number of suicides, and in very young people, even preteens. And the thing that I have found with clients is that they really think it's permanent. And the first thing I will say to a client is, you have to embrace this phrase, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
And nothing is permanent. That is the nature of nature. There are changes and cycles always. Just look at the seasons. When it feels so unbearable that you think you cannot go on, stop. Just stop. And allow yourself to not just examine it with your mind, but with your heart. Because your heart oftentimes knows better. Your mind tries to analyze something that cannot be analyzed. It is on a feeling, on a heart, on a soul level. And we all came in for a reason. We each have, it may seem like a small reason. If we can pinpoint it in our lives, it's huge because it affects everybody.
Yeah.
A small ripple, and the ripples, the stone in the pond, ripple upon ripple upon ripple. That is what our thoughts are like. That's energy.
Everything's energy.
Yeah.
Every thought, every heartbeat, every word we speak, every vision we see, every bit of music we hear, and it's all coming from universal source. Call it creation, evolution, the divine, God, whatever you seek it to be. It exists. It's real. We're part of it. There's no past, present, or future. We are just dwelling part of our energy in one place, part of our energy in another place. I know it's hard to grasp that concept, that we can be everywhere and be in this moment. You and I are in this moment right now.
Right.
But part of you is still in that moment with your little brother.
It's true.
And what we want people who are suffering from any pain that is so great that they contemplate suicide because they're just so overwhelmed with anxiety and fear to get help, to cry, to find something they enjoy, music or art or friends or food or what, and to get help, counseling, and to talk about it, not to hide themselves away from it. So can you please tell us about the difference between depression, manic depression, and bipolar? Many people get confused, and I would assume there's a little bit of each going on. There's no fine line where we could say this or that. And I don't like labels anyhow.
Right.
Labels are too limiting. We need to just deal with the emotions and feelings. So tell us something about it.
Manic depression is the old name for bipolar. I still like manic depression as a title because it says it all. It says you can experience a manic episode, which is, think of it as speeded up energy. You can get to the point where you think you can do anything, which of course you can't. There are physical limitations on our physical life.
Right.
And then the depressive end, and think of a pendulum. As far as it swings in the manic phase, it will swing into the equal and opposite end, which is depression. So as high as you go in your manic, you will go so low in depression. One will follow the other. Everybody's different. Some people cycle that way almost daily. Others, in my experience, my last episode was in 2003. I was in mania for almost a year, and I was on medication during the whole time until I switched medications with my doctor's help and slowly came back. And there are ways to moderate that swing of the pendulum so that I didn't drop all the way down in the depression. It's important to know that there are chemical reasons for a lot of this, for depression, for anxiety. They are mood disorders, and there are areas of our brain that are directly affected. And so that's why there are many ways to deal with it, and I deal with that in the book. One of the most interesting to me has to do with shamanism. Shaman are the traditional medicine men, religious men, priests in indigenous cultures. And there's a beautiful quote in there from a shaman who talks about their culture, in a more indigenous culture. They look at mental illness as a spiritual blessing. They embrace the individual and pull him or her in and teach them how to help others with what they call their gift. That it's not illness at all. It is a spiritual elevation. The problem in our society is if you don't have guidance in that way, we're ostracized. We punish ourselves because we say it's our fault. If I could just say for a moment,
let me say this: it is definitely no soul's fault. They chose to come into this life to experience whatever it is they need. Whatever disability or whatever spiritual gift they may have that may be challenging for them too, such as sensitive people, which you also discuss, and you discuss how many sensitive people develop mental disorders because Western culture views sensitivity as not being a very valuable source for anything, and indigenous cultures don't see sensitivity that way because they realize a person who's sensitive is interacting with the environment in a very heightened way, as the shamans are, and as the traditional, the peyote that certain native people used to take to get into higher states of consciousness. So you're the first person I ever read who listed this as a spiritual possibility for personal growth and for understanding the value of sensitivity. And many people who have these issues are very gifted people, very talented people, and it's a very common problem. It's not rare at all. So I like that you talked about that a lot. But let's go back to, you give the 7 steps, right? What the formula offers. And in those 7 steps is a way to see yourself, I believe, through the cycles. Because the first one is being able to stabilize, whether you use traditional medication, alternative supplements, or Eastern medical traditions like I'm a Reiki practitioner. And I have been able to help some people deal with autism, great anxiety,
Oh, yeah.
great fears, great physical issues, and just in getting to feel their own being, their soul essence, they have a different perspective on themselves and life, and that makes all the difference. But let's go through what the formula offers. So step one is stabilization.
Right.
Okay?
Right. Because you cannot make change if you are all over the place, which oftentimes happens with any kind of episode. Anxiety, depression, manic depression, schizophrenia, anything. So stabilizing. Think of it as having an anchor. You know, you're a boat in the ocean. You've got to put your anchor down before you can fish, you know, or you're going to be all over the place.
Right.
Once you are stabilized, and this is a journey, by the way, whether it's with traditional Western medicine, or natural medicine, or shamanism, or a combination of many of them.
Personally, I think a combination is best.
Yeah,
personally.
Yeah.
I've discovered that. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Yeah.
That's right. Once you're stabilized, then you can start to work with your condition, with your mental outlook, and that's where mental alchemy comes in, which is ancient. It's based in astrology, even though you don't have to ascribe to astrology. It has very definite guidance there. So if you're having a negative thought in mental alchemy, it will fit into a particular category. For instance, if you're having real anxiety about safety in your life, that's a Saturn issue. Saturn rules safety. So how do you deal with it? You pull in some Venus. And Venus is about socializing. Yes, it's love energy, but it's also creativity. And that is where, in the book, we give examples of how you can pull that into your life. And it will balance out the safety issues and let you move forward. So that's only one example. But there are many areas in mental alchemy that we can change. If you're having problems in your home life, that's a moon issue, lunar. So how do you deal with that in the best way? You pull in action, Mars. You pull in ways that you can take action to help that situation, and there are examples of that. So think of it, the way I wrote this is to look at this as bite-sized pieces. You don't have to bake the whole pie at one time. Just take bite-sized pieces, and that's part of, to me, mental alchemy was the greatest tool, and I use it to this day.
Yeah, mental alchemy you discuss as empowered thinking. And this is thinking using affirmations, visualizations, all type of, affirmations to transform our thoughts and get to a place where we're creating our feelings, not through our emotions, but through what we want to project out into the world from our heart, or soul-based love energy. And it's very powerful. But our thinking has to be changed, and we need to work on this. This doesn't happen overnight. This is a process by becoming first aware, and then finding the tools to make these changes. And step 3, you say, is mental and emotional exercises, because when you're in a serious depression, I know this, reading should be an easy and enjoyable task, is not, because your concentration can be limited by either mania or depression. So we've got to find ways to get ourselves to find emotional exercises to relax and to rebalance the body. And then you say step 4 is the physical world, because proper diet, exercise, grooming, and sleep, and being with friends out in nature, family, they're all healing attributes. And then along with that, what would be the next one? Very important would be routines and responsibilities. We all need some order and
Mhm.
way to start our day, to enjoy our day, to end our day. And what's the most important of these these seven different ways
Mhm.
in your formula? What would you find the
Yeah.
most important? They're
I
all
put
important, but
well,
what
I
would...
put stabilizing first. That's why I put it first. You can't go further if you're not stable. It just can't happen. You'll try and you'll fail and you'll blame yourself.
Mm,
And it's not your fault. This is like a roadmap, and I try to introduce it in a way where even if you look at it as a menu, pull out what's useful for you, review it all, see what's involved, and then create your own wellness profile.
I want to thank you, Alicemarie O'Neill, author of the formula, 7 Steps for Healing from Depression and Manic Depression, for clearly, concisely, patiently, and calmly describing depression and manic depression, the condition, and approaches to work with this health issue that affects all segments of our society. To learn more
Thank,
about, wonderful job. You did a most excellent job in
thank
showing the
you.
beauty. And the beauty of your voice and the calmness you have achieved is part of your life journey and the work that you have done so well. For people who are struggling with any of these issues, we want you to know there is a light, there is
Yes.
peace, there is going beyond the fear and limitation. And in that journey, you will succeed and be the brightest soul one day when you return to spirit. So I want to say, to learn more about this and to purchase the formula, go to Alicemarie O'Neill or Amazon.com. In summarizing today's episode of Healing from Within, we have offered listeners a clearer view and personal examination of the various cycles and stages and reactions when dealing with depression, bipolar disorder, or manic episodes. And Alicemarie has clearly explained ways to find the help and projects and her system that may create healing situations and lessen the effects or stigma associated with an often misunderstood yet very common life challenge. Like any challenge, it offers possibilities to know yourself, others, the physical world, and universal source that helps us to create life that seeks love and to find ways to connect to others in a more refined, compassionate fashion. As Alicemarie O'Neill wrote, we are as much a part of nature as the roses, birds, trees, and tides. Depression deceives us into thinking we are separate from the rest of life. Yet when we feel our connection to all living things, we find our greatest healing. Feeling this connection raises our vibration, and raising it is the key to raising our awareness and consciousness. Heightened awareness helps dissolve despair. Darkness has no hold in the presence of light. Alicemarie and I would have you remember who you are as a spiritual being having a physical life, and should try, where possible, to embrace the hope we all have for finding ways to live in peace, harmony, balance, and general well-being, no matter the health challenge we may have. For in the end, the only reality is our ability to shift and change ourselves into our best version of acceptance and surrender to all, for then we can be free of pain, fear, worry, and delusion. Our true nature is always love, positivity, and hope for a good day. I am Sheryl Glick, host of Healing from Within, author of The Living Spirit, Answers for Healing and Infinite Love, and I invite you to visit my website, SherylGlick.com, to hear and read about authors and leaders in the fields of science, metaphysics, religion, medicine, psychology, energy work, the arts, and music share their views on the dual nature of each being and ways to inform the heart and mind to connect with our highest selves. Shows may also be heard on webtalkradio.net and dreamvision7radio.com. Thank you.